Hey, it's John. Welcome back to the show. And on today's show, I talk about my latest music purchases. These CDs I'm going to talk about today, I purchased on Friday, November 28th, 2025, at Record Revival in Quakertown, Pennsylvania. Record Revival is a small but really cool music store that's part of the Quakertown Farmers Market. They're only open on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. The store is very small. The store is about the size of this room. But if you want something used and a little out of the ordinary, a little harder to find, you're probably going to find it at this store. I've bought a lot of good used CDs here over the years. It's also 89 miles from home, so I haven't been there in 3 years, but figured I was off the day after Thanksgiving. I had some Christmas shopping I had to do. Let me take a ride down to Quakertown. And I had a wonderful day purchasing stuff. I purchased 16 CDs. Most of them are used. They do have some new music there, but they have a lot more old music. They are also, as I said, a very small store. They didn't participate in Record Store Day, so I'm not going to talk about any Record Store Day releases on this show today. In fact, they only had one new release in the store, and it's the latest archival live album from Alice Cooper, which I believe is from the Welcome to My Nightmare tour. So I went there looking for some CDs for the live cut series. I wasn't able to find any of those. Not a lot of live CDs there. Well, they have some box sets of new live CDs. And I didn't pick up anything like that. But as is usually my want when I go to this store, and I've been going to the store for about 6 years or so, I always walk out with a lot of stuff. So 16 CDs, most of them used, a few new ones. I left the cellophane on the new ones, kept the price tags on them, except for the ones that are part of the thumbnail. For this video, here we go. I'm going to try to grab as many used ones from the beginning as possible. The first one here that I have is Trouble, Psalm 9. I'm a metal fan from back in the day. I never got into Trouble. It wasn't, I just didn't know them back in the day when my music tastes were changing. They completely fell off my radar. I know there's a few people out here who got great YouTube music channels that talk highly of Trouble. I finally have my first Trouble album. I'm looking forward to checking it out. See what we got next. All in this flat bag, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Here you go. The last time I went there, no word of lie, I walked out of there with 34 CDs. They gave me a box to take them out of. So I'm always a big purchaser when I go here because I never know when to get back. All right. Okay. At the drive-in, acrobatic tenements. How did I get into this band? Well, I'll tell you. Friend named Tom. Hello, Tom Mikulski, if you're watching. Got me into this band over 20 years ago when we both worked at a place called Sally Mae. They later got bought out, and now they're a company called Navient. Tom would later move to Florida. I haven't seen him in a long time, but Tom got me into a lot of great music. Tom was a little younger than me, probably about 12 years younger than me at least. So he introduced me to a band called the Mars Volta. And while I liked them, I was impressed with the bass playing. Flea played on Deloused Comatorium. I'm probably mispronouncing it. I said, this is a little too extreme for me. He goes, well, they came out of a band called At the Drive-In. You might like At the Drive-In, is what he said to me. Burn me a copy of this. They're more post-punk. And I saw this. I'm like, God, I got to pick this up. I haven't listened to it in a long time, but I was checking it out on Spotify earlier today. Just more really cool post-punk sound. Definitely looking forward to revisiting this again. Tom, again, thank you so much for getting me into this band. I will have another CD where I'm going to talk about a friend from Sally Mae that introduced me to it on here as well. Actually, Tom got me into this band too. You would think I would get him into Joy Division, but he got me into Joy Division. This is closer. This was their second and final studio album. And they're definitely one of the best post-punk bands there ever was. He burned me a copy. This is my first origin. I'm really looking forward to revisiting this as well. He burned me this one. He burned me Substance, which was like a best of. Had Love Will Tear Us Apart on it, which originally was only released as a single. I never got into New Order, which is what they became. My brother was a big New Order fan. I was more into Joy Division, but again, it was Tom Mikulski, who was much younger than me, that got me into this band. So what's next? Oh, for the incomparable Nick Esquire, I found a Robin Trower album from 2015 called Where Are You Going To? I do not really know this album. I might have heard a little bit on Spotify when I'd be listening to a different Trower album and then it ended and then they play you songs from other albums and there's the Robin Trower poster behind me. I put that up there purposely for Nick. So a continuation of my Robin Trower journey right here. Looking forward to this. What's next? Okay, that's new. I'm trying to do the stuff with the cellophane later on. Okay. Stone Temple Pilots. This is their first self-titled album, but I believe it was album number 6. This is from 2002. I don't know the later work too much. The last album they did, maybe maybe not the last album, the second to last album, the late 2010s. Saw them on that tour when Jeff Gutt was their vocalist. I believe he's still there. Haven't heard anything off this. I'm looking forward to checking this out. And just to let you know, I love 90s Stone Temple Pilots. That band got a lot of shit when they came out, but I always thought they were great. And I think their music, especially from that period, has aged like a fine wine. Let's see what we got next. The Replacements, All Shook Down. This was their last studio album. I own all the other studio albums, but this one I love. Let It Be. I love Tim. That's my favorite. I love Pleased to Meet Me. I did a video, an album war for Let It Be, the Beatles album versus the Replacements album. That's here on John the Music Nut if you'd like to check it out. I don't know this album very well. No, all the other ones song and verse. Definitely looking forward to sinking my teeth into this. See what's next. Oh, this is an artist I've liked for a long time. I'm just starting to really get a lot of his stuff. It's Jackson Browne. This was his debut, Saturate Before Using. A lot of his classics are on here, including his first hit single, which was Doctor My Eyes. Jamaica Say You Will's on here. Rock Me on the Water. I saw Jackson Browne once in 2003. It was an acoustic set up on Montage Mountain in Music, Pennsylvania. It was an interesting show. They're playing this big outdoor venue. Kev Mo comes on first. Steve Earle comes on second. Jackson Browne finishes it off. It's all acoustic, no band, just those guys. It was a really memorable show. Very, very cool. But I've never owned this album. I own, oh God, The Pretender, Running on Empty, Late for the Sky. Looking forward to getting into this. I'm going to say that a lot. Looking forward to checking this out. I might as well start with the new ones now. I never owned this album. I remember this coming out back in the day. This is a remastered and reloaded collector's edition of the debut album by Blue Murder. Man, I like the videos. I heard the songs. I never just made the step and bought the album. I saw it there. I'm like, oh, it's time. I like John Sykes' work with Thin Lizzy, and I like his work with Whitesnake. So more on Whitesnake later. So this is a one that's always been in the back of my mind, but I never pulled the trigger on it till now. Blue Murder's self-titled debut, 1980, 89, I believe. I think it was 89. Okay, this is a new one too. I could tell because the cellophane's still on it. Oh, this is Husker Du. Metal Circus. This is one of their early albums when they were still more of a hardcore band. I got into this band maybe mid 2000s. I knew of them back in high school, but I was listening to more hard rock and metal. And then I was expanding my horizons, but I never went into post punk until many years later. I discovered Husker Du on eMusic, which is, I believe it's still out there. You paid for downloads and all the money went to the artists, and they focused on bands from on independent labels. So this, I believe, was on an independent label. I believe this might be album number 2. Zen Arcade was when I really was the first one I heard, and that's what really got me into the band. And I got all the albums, studio albums later on after that. Husker Du. Will there be some Husker Du content on this channel? Stay tuned to find out. Next. Oh, there's another new one. Okay. I just did a Scorpion show on Peter Kerr's wonderful channel, Rock Daydream Nation. Just came out today, Saturday, November 29, 2025. We do an album more in trance versus taken by force. It was a privilege and a pleasure to be back on Peter's channel again. I've always loved my collaborations with him. Well, this is a later album by the Scorpions. One that you never hear about anymore. I'll tell you straight out, I've never heard this album. This is Unbreakable from 2004. And I believe this was more of a return to form for them after they put out Eye to Eye, which I thought was a complete misstep. And then they were doing albums with orchestras and acoustic. You know, some of these bands, they went down that path. I wasn't a fan of it at all, making albums with orchestras and then putting out acoustic albums with your songs on them. I just want to hear new music. That's just been my thing. But I'm looking forward to hearing Unbreakable and talking about it in the future. Been on a Scorpions kick lately. Okay. Here's going back in a way back machine. Gordon Lightfoot in his first greatest hits album, Gord's Gold. This was released in 75. And I'm gathering this was released before the song The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, which is a song that I used to play in a classic rock band called Ripcord. We would play a lot of the classic rock standards of their day that you still hear on Rock 107. I believe Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald came out after this, and this was the song. That song was the song we'd open our shows with. We'd open with something mellower, and then we would play harder stuff throughout the night. Gordon Lightfoot is a artist who I've always admired. I never owned an album by him. My mom, and I know we don't have it at the Alapic house anymore, but I remember back in the day, she had the 45 single for Carefree Highway, which is the last song on here. That was from the Sundown album, that I know. So definitely looking forward to digging into this wonderful songwriter from Canada, one of Canada's finest exports musically, as far as I'm concerned. So let's see what we got next. Okay, we're going back to use one. Oh, Whitesnake. Slide it in. This is the European version. How do I know? Gambler starts off the album. Had this on cassette for many, many, many years. It's 84. The year it came out. I still have the cassette. You want to see more Whitesnake content? I do a album after show on Whitesnake Slip of the Tongue. Also on the live cut, Tim Derling and I talk about Whitesnake's live in the heart of the city. Thank you, Tim, for getting me into this album. This is an album that I discovered when we got MTV back at the house in May of 84, and we're playing the videos for Slow and Easy, and then later that summer, Love Ain't No Stranger. This is an album I've always dug, and it's really gained in stature for me over the years. I like this more than a 1987 album, although at one point it was the opposite. So it's nice to have this one again. I'll definitely be giving this a few more spins. Okay. Story number 2 from a friend from Sally Mae. This is Harry Chapin, Greatest Stories Live. I got this album on cassette back in 1991 when she was my senior at work at that point. Her name was Marie Popko. She later became Marie Morgan. She said, if you want to hear a great live album, listen to Harry Chapin, Greatest Stories Live. And I listened. I'm glad I did. Harry Chapin's a big thing here in Pennsylvania because his song 30,000 Pounds of Bananas was based on a true story that happened in Scranton, Pennsylvania, which isn't too far from where I grew up. I've always admired Harry Chapin's music, and I remember when he died back in 81 and they were playing, I remember he was on Solid Gold, that TV music show on television that it was more of a variety show. They talk about a variety of artists. I remember he recorded a show right before he died, and then they aired it that weekend. Harry Chapin's an artist I've always liked. I've never dug deep. I've only had the cassette. So thank you once again, Marie, for getting me into this album back in the day. She also got me into Jeff Beck's Wired. I remember her saying, you don't want to buy Blow by Blow. You want to buy Wired. She was right on that one too. Okay. My only release that came out in 2025. This is Lily Hyatt, Forever. And if you look, it's signed. This is an artist I really like, John Hyatt's daughter. This is the third album by Lily Hyatt. Great songwriter in her own right. I always say John Hyatt's one of the finest songwriters of our generation, of our lifetimes. Lily Hyatt's a very strong songwriter. It's a little more of a modern bent on the songs, but she still has that great sense of melody, great sense of a hook in her songs. Looking forward to diving into this one. Okay, what's next? We only got 2 more, so hit the bag, throw us to the side. First one is one I owned on cassette back in 1988, and I saw them on this tour open for AC/DC. It's LA Guns' self-titled debut. I always loved this album, except for One Way Ticket, which is the ballad. I wasn't into the ballad at all. I thought every other song on here kicked ass. My buddy Jack Wastamachia, who I've talked about, great friend of mine who knew more about music than anyone ever met. Rest in peace again, Jack. I got him into LA Guns because he was introduced to me to so much great stuff. And he goes, what do you know about LA Guns? I go, you don't know? He goes, no, in the 80s, I wasn't listening too much. He has had different things going on in his life. I go, oh, you'd love them. They got this really cool, loose sound. They were hard rock, but they were very loose. They weren't quite as tight as Guns N' Roses, but just as cool. And Guns had put out Appetite for Destruction year before. He goes back to me, he goes, oh, I love them. They remind me of the New York Dolls. And I go, and I loved the New York Dolls at that point. I mean, I didn't love them in the 80s. I got into them in the 2000s too. But Jack and I are having this conversation around 2017. And he goes, Dad, they got a New York Dolls groove to them. And I went back, grabbed a cassette and listened to him. Like, yeah, he's right. He was always right about music. So it's great to have this again. They had a few of the latter day LA Guns releases down there. And I listened to Diamonds earlier yesterday, and I like that album quite a bit. They had the newest album as well. I think they had Checkered Past there, but I know this album, and I remember seeing them open for AC/DC. Saw them the next year in 89 at the FM Kirby Center in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. That was my first show there. They headlined. Dangerous Toys came on first, and Tora came on in the middle. Great show. Dangerous Toys destroyed that night, but LA Guns were pretty good, and Tora were as well. So it's nice to finally have this on CD. Here's my last one. This is a band I'll probably do maybe an album ranking on this band down the road. I think I need one or two more studio albums by this very quirky, very different band that I got into in 1992 when not long after they put out Sailing the Seas of Cheese. This is Primus, the Desaturating 7. This came out in 2016 or 2017. I know nothing from this album. The last album I heard was the one they wrote about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I saw them on that tour and they played that album in its entirety. I wasn't really big into that album and I kind of got out of them, but it'll be cool to dive into this one. So those are the 16 albums that I just picked up from Record Revival. Thank you, Record Revival, as always. Thank you all so much for watching the show. So, what have you been listening to lately? And what have you been picking up, whether it's at your local record store or you got it at a flea market or a garage sale or you got them on Amazon or eBay or Discogs or any other store on the internet, or have you been downloading a lot of great stuff lately? Please let me know in the comments what you think of these albums, what some of your favorites are, and what you've been picking up lately also. Thank you all so much for liking my videos and for subscribing to the channel. Sorry I don't say that enough. I hope you're liking the latest videos I've been putting out. We've had some great times making these videos. I have videos out here that I did with Peter Kerr and Daniel Bosch, Bicycle Legs from Bicycle Legs Talks Music, Martin Popoff, of course. He joined me earlier today to talk about UFO BBC Radio 1 live in concert. That was a fun one to do. On Sunday, November 30, I will be on Y&T and Friends channel with my buddy Brian Foster. We're going to talk about Y&T's 1987 album Contagious. That was an album I bought back on cassette back when it was released, and that was a fun one to talk about. So I'll put a link in the post on my channel here, John the Music Nut, to give you a lead to go to check out that video. So again, thank you all so much. Thank you all so much for watching the live cut shows. I did a wonderful one here with my buddy BM Bolt, where we talked about Government Mule's live album Deepest End. And I also have an interview with Tim Derling. I always love talking music with Tim, where we talk about his latest Fleetwood Mac book that you can only get on Amazon on demand. The Sound That Haunts You, a beginner's companion to Fleetwood Mac. So that interview, along with everything else I've talked about, I either have here on John the Music Nut, or I have links to those in the post. The shows that I did with Brian, Peter, and Daniel, I was on their channel. Daniel and I, we did a co-collaboration, so you could check out that video here. And I do also have links to the videos in the playlist here on this channel. So thank you so much for your support. I hope you're all having a great weekend. Thank you for watching today. Do what you love, and I'll talk to you soon.